Bildy here. On my last few videos, I was talking about the NPCs and what seems to be at the very core of it. Maybe save some of you a lot of trouble. I will say one more thing about it. It's this is a way to look at it. It's a spiritual algorithm. The entertainment and the lack of responsibility, but especially the entertainment, the titillation, the satisfying of passions, that's the reward for complicity. That's the reward for complicity in their own brainwashing. They're complicit in their own brainwashing. They're complicit in being fed poison and being tricked and fooled. And the payout for them, what they get out of it is entertainment. What they get out of it is their passions are being fed. And they don't want you to interfere with it. That's the system. That's how that system works. That's what you're up against. And, you know, you can find ways to be effective in that. It's difficult, but, you know, some of us like challenges, don't we? The truth is at stake. Anyway, that's enough of that talk. I'm done with that. I want to talk about briefly, hopefully this will be brief, something that happened a long time ago. I started seeing what was going on in Syria. That was what led directly to what we have going on right now. These are forces that have been in contention for a long time. The monopolar world control, world slave state, Great Reset, whatever you want to call it, against people that want to oppose that. People that eventually woke up and saw the light and saw where it's going. Syria is where it started. You know, Bashar al-Assad is still in charge of Syria. And he should be. He's a pretty nice guy. Most Americans think he's a horrible terrorist that kills his own people with gas and barrel bombs because they watch the media, and it's just complete fiction. And if you, a little logic will go a long way in dispelling that and showing you the absurdity of it. Eesh. Anyway, what was happening then, I've got a fantastic book. I don't know if it's available. I'll get back to you on that. Some of my friends in Russia did a lot of research, and they wrote a book about the white helmets and how the media PR campaign and intelligence services worked hand in hand to convince you, Mr. and Mrs. American public, that Bashar al-Assad must go and that the Syrian army are the terrorists and they're using barrel bombs. Syrian army is one of the most well-equipped armies in the Middle East. Why would they make bombs out of propane cans? Oh, you're not supposed to ask that. They just did because they're bad. And you believe they're bad if you're a typical American because you've watched movies about those towel heads, right? You've watched movies about those people in the Middle East. And oh yeah, the Syrian government, well, they're crazy. They kill their own people because they're evil. And you believe that because if you're a typical American, you've been inculcated to that racism about what to think about Russians, Iranians, and people in the Middle East in general, Muslims. You got a narrative that you believe about Chinese, all these people. Well, yeah, they would do that because, you know, I saw a movie where, you know, Bruce Willis stops them from doing something. You know, that it doesn't affect them, right? Their entertainment. They're willing to believe the pictures of a propane can laying in a bed in somebody's apartment with a hole in the roof, and it didn't even break the bed. Come on! This is just like the pictures we saw in the early days of the just before the military operation in Ukraine. But then what happened was Russia got involved and demonstrated some things. They could hit anything they wanted in Syria from either the Black Sea or the Caspian Sea, which they control. And that was just one little tiny thing that they could do. There was probing. The assassination of the Iranian general, I'm gonna say the wrong name too. I'm doing this off the top of my head. I didn't make notes. But you remember they assassinated an Iranian general? He was invited to go to some conference in Iraq, and the U.S. bombed him. He was fighting terrorism. He was making severe headway against ISIS. Well, that's why they got rid of him. That caused a real stir. Plus, he had a lot of political gravitas in Iran. He could have been the next leader of Iran, which would have took Iran in a direction the U.S. didn't want them to go. So they assassinated him, and all the Americans, yeah, we got rid of another terrorist. Idiots. So many of you are on the wrong side because of your programming, because of the shows you watch, because of your racism and prejudice and bigotry against people, or is inculcated by the movies you freaking watch. I'm not talking to my subscribers, of course. I hope that they spread this around and share it to people that need to hear it, especially military people. They're lousy with people that just don't freaking think. They get their information fed to them from authorities, and they believe what they're told, and they watch movies and shows to back it up that appeal to their passions, that appeal to their intellectual laziness and intellectual laziness and lust and fear. A disturbing thing that happened to me in Taji, that's where I first discovered this. I never went to the MWR much. I didn't really care much for it, but the morale and welfare and recreation facilities on the bases. I went into they had a big one at Taji, Iraq, and I went in there and they had a library. A library, wow, they all have libraries, but they're minuscule. This one had a big library. I went back there and there's like 40 foot of bookshelves, 8 feet high, full. Oh boy! And I went through and looked at it, and I found about maybe 18 inches of reference books and 2 classics. One of them was Tristan Shandy. I don't remember the other one, but they're classics I didn't particularly care about. And the rest of it was male romance novels, basically. Military male romance novels. It was all trash novels. It was all prole feed. It was all about the special forces or special ops guy working with the CIA, and he got the, the Muslim terrorist or the Russian mafia and outsmarted them and had contact with them, and there was firefights and explosions and car chases. Then he got the girl, and there's gratuitous sex scenes, and they're all the same, and they're so poorly written. I made myself read through some paragraphs, and they're written like the girl romance novels, just awful reference and grammar problems. And these books in this library weren't donated. Some of them were donated, but most of them, those are books left over from dudes rolling out. They buy the books online or they buy them at the PX. They read them in their masturbatorium, and then they have already got it. They don't read them again, I guess, and they donate them to the library. And that's why they had a 40-foot shelf of prole feed. And that's your military. I've never been in... I can't say that. I have been in Russian, the equivalent of MWR. Actually, it's more like USO, the equivalent of a USO. My kids sang in the Black Sea Fleet Officers Club several times. They put on shows for the soldiers, and they bring them in there. Actual shows. Youth groups, children, schools organize these things and put on shows for them. My daughters and my son would dress up and go sing for them. It's a beautiful thing. But they had an area back in the back where they could stay, and they had tea rooms for them and stuff. And I didn't see a library, but I saw a lot of portraits and sculpture and things, and it was pretty highbrow. I seriously doubt that they had an equivalency with the American MWR. I wish I'd have thought to look and see what kind of books are available to them, what kind of they encourage, but I'm pretty sure I know the Russian government and the Russian military very well. It's probably Pushkin, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy. You want to go fight them? Really? Even if you win, you lose. Anyway, that wasn't what I was going to talk about. I got off on a rabbit trail, but, you know, it was good, wasn't it? Syria. Trump was in charge after the 2016 election. And I was disappointed that Trump sent missiles in. Trump had to, you know, throw some missiles into Syria. They said there was a chemical attack. Assad did another chemical attack. We know it's all bullshit. And he sent missiles in anyway. But all he hit was an empty hangar. He had one antique jet in it that wasn't being used. And I think one guy was killed. Poor guy. That was a waste. There's no reason for that. But Trump sent the missile in. Because it was the gas warehouse. That's where they kept the gas to drop on people. It was a gas production site. And the Russian media showed that site, that exact site. And you can't argue with this. The journalists were there right after it happened. Immediately after it was announced. Russian journalists. And they're walking around in that hangar and there's still smoke coming off shit. And they're walking around picking up pieces and looking at them and examining them, and they're showing each other. There are several of them in there. None of them had chemical equipment on. None of them had gas masks. They knew there wasn't anything there. They knew there wasn't anything there. And they found the bulkhead for the Tomahawk, and they picked it up, and they dug it out, and they filmed the ordnance number on that Tomahawk. That's pretty much proof that that wasn't a show. They were there. They proved that. Why did Trump do that if he's fighting the deep state? Okay, I'm sorry, but I gotta go here. I don't see any reason other than that was planned. He had to hit something. Maybe he's not in charge. Maybe Trump isn't really making the decisions back then. He definitely had to deal with other people who were on the other side. They had to hit something. And so they made sure and hit something where everything was ready. And the journalists, well, some poor guy got killed, though. That's a shame, supposedly. But they showed that ordnance number on that bulkhead. And guys walking around with no equipment on. Well, that swayed the smart set, didn't it? The ones that don't lie. I think there was a probing going on over Syria. There was probing. Russia's demonstrating what they can do. Iran, when they assassinated, I can't remember his name, the Iranian general, the important one, when the U.S. assassinated him, their dirty little trick, and Iran retaliated by hitting some U.S. bases, and they got away with it because they could. U.S. couldn't do anything about it. And they hit some empty places in U.S. bases. That was a demonstration. The Russian missiles from the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea into Syria, that was a demonstration. There's probes and demonstrations. Okay, you guys are fucking around and you're going to find out, but I am merciful and kind and I'm not going to fucking, just go off on you. I'm going to show you what I can do here. And you look at this and you learn. And then the U.S. hitting that empty hangar and proving there's no gas there, that might have been orchestrated from either side. That's encouraging. What else could it be? Was the Trump team really that incompetent? I don't think so. I'm not a Q-tard, but some things give me pause. But then some other things are the opposite. But maybe I just don't know everything. It's possible. It's possible Uncle Billy doesn't know everything. A little self-effacing humor there, That's a handle that somebody can grab, right? Did you hear what he said? How dare you? Oh, we're having fun anyway, aren't we? Are we learning anything? I think this is interesting stuff to explore. The stakes are high in this information war. Some of the stuff that you see on the news is not for you. It's for somebody else to see. And it's to put something out there that changes the paradigm. It's how it's how information war works. I've been able to put things out to change the paradigm. I didn't get paid for it and I didn't get credit for it. But I'm a happy camper. I can die now. I'm fine. Uncle Billy's very blessed. Anywho, I have some notes for something else that I was going to go into anyway. Well, that's about it. I don't want to go into this. I'll do this another video. But there were probes in Syria 10 years ago. Well, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, there were probes in that war that you could see, where you could see who's on what side. Some of these probes got broken off real quick. There were demonstrations. There was information war. It was on the national news and on the Russian news. And like I say, a lot of these things that don't make any sense, well, that's because they aren't for your consumption. They're for something else. They serve another purpose than what they appear to. Interesting stuff. I guess you probably, my subscribers already knew that, but it's nice to reiterate and think about that and point out specific examples. It helps us tune in to what we're looking at. But that's enough for this one. Uncle Billy signing out.